administration has fared with it. Of course, remember, this is part of President Kenyatta's Big Four plan. And now Rajan Shah, who is the chairperson of the Kenya Associations of Manufacturers, joins us virtually from Thika. Rajan, good to see you. This is your first interview as chairperson of the Kenya Association of Manufacturers. First of all, congratulations on your appointment. Let's talk about the Jubilee Administration's performance on manufacturing. This is one of the key pillars in the Big Four agenda of President Uhuru Kenyatta. In your own assessment, how do you think the administration has fared on to enable you, the manufacturers, actually execute a job to the very best of your ability?
Okay, thank you, Brian. And first of all, thank you for your best wishes. And I hope I'm going to kind of be leading this organization, this very reputable organization of Kenya Association of Manufacturers, to greater heights. In terms of how we have fared in the last in the Jubilee administration, as you rightly put, I mean, manufacturing is one of the key pillars and one of the Big Four agendas, and that in itself speaks a lot about the fact that how manufacturing is so important. It creates jobs and it creates sustainable jobs for the economy, and in the long run, for any economy which is worth talking about in terms of economic development, unless we have industrial development, we cannot really kind of be talking about economic development. So, I mean, the first and most important thing is for the Jubilee administration to accept that manufacturing is a key pillar. And yes, we have definitely seen policies and programs around manufacturing which have driven and brought some level of focus for manufacturing. Let me name a few, right? One is, first of all, around the local content. This is something that the Jubilee administration has really kind of followed through, and the Buy Kenya, Build Kenya initiative, so that we have more support of local content and supporting local manufacturers in terms of for the government to buy more of the local produce. At the moment, as we speak, we have over 500 items which are locally manufactured, where government in its procurement process is giving a priority to all its various agencies, ministries, entities, to ensure that there's a lot more focus in procurement of this locally manufactured goods. The other aspect is around local content. Recently we have just developed the national automotive policy, again driving around how we can increase the amount of local content in what we manufacture in terms of the assembly of local cars, and to have more local content, more components, and actually incentivizing local component manufacturers. So that's one side which I would say has really given a boost to manufacturers here in terms of its importance of how we can drive manufacturing as the economic agenda. Other aspect, Brian, is around controlling of illicit trade. We have constantly been kind of being affected by how we have illicit trade of actually intellectual property violations, people bringing in imported goods under the disguise that these are locally manufactured. And as you probably have seen, how the government has put a clampdown on this through the multi-agency task force. And of course, I mean, it's not that that illicit trade has not actually kind of been eradicated. I mean, it's still there, but I think there's been a lot of focus put by the government around them. Other areas of development, the textile value chain, the leather value chain, these are areas government has put a lot of focus. We have seen the Ati River Textile Hub development strategy, Rivertex being revived, and a lot of investment put in by government in Rivertex, so that we can actually bring back our textile industry back to its how in its glory days in the 80s, 60s, 70s, how textile used to be so important. And also, I also want to address around small and medium-sized enterprises. The government also has a strategy around development of of this sector of small and medium-sized enterprises. And lastly, the development of the integrated national export development and promotion strategy. And this is something I think which is very important for us to realize, that if we want to grow our industrialization, we cannot rely just on domestic markets. We will need to grow our export as a share of our total and manufacturing export, value-add export as a component of our overall export. We cannot rely just on exporting primary products. And to that end, I think the government has realized the importance of being able to do a lot more export-driven value addition. Where they have also kind of created initiatives around bilateral trade. Our president was just completed his excellency just completed his term as the chair of the East African community, and the discussions around how we can grow our exports not only within our East African markets but also further development into the Africa continental free trade, which is something which is very current in life. So these are areas which we feel that government has, and through the Ministry of Industrialization, Trade and Development and the Ministry of East African Cooperation, have developed the right policies and put the right lay of the land for us to kind of drive export-led growth.
Fair enough. Let's talk about a challenge that most manufacturers are facing right now, and it's the issue to do with financing. Key among them, the dollar shortage, and we saw Pwani Oil close down its operations, at least in the interim, just to make sure that they're not biting more than they can chew in terms of supplies and demand of the market. And of course, we're seeing a couple of manufacturers who are also struggling to meet these kind of obligations to supply the markets that they supply. Banks have been rationing the dollar, of course, to a maximum of $5,000, which we've gathered news from the ground and the majority of people are saying that is not even sustainable to maintain a day's supply. How do we avoid such a problem in the future, Mr. Rajan?
Again, yes, Brian, this is definitely something which the manufacturers have come out and openly kind of been discussing with government around the shortage of dollars. But let's try and understand where where this problem emanates from, and this is where the whole global macroeconomic situation. We look at how food prices and fuel prices have kind of gone through the roof, has led to a higher demand for the dollar foreign currency. On the other side, our exports have not led to any further significant growth because our export values have not grown at the same pace at which our demand for our goods, for food and fuel, have led to the increase in dollar demand. So obviously, I mean, this is a problem which is not only faced by Kenya, it's faced by many of the developing countries around the world, and we are obviously seeing this distress situations across many other African countries as well. But in terms of to avoid this kind of scenarios, I mean, as much as we can try to the best of our abilities to try and even out these flows, as I said, the macroeconomics and the global situation has led us to that. What we are proposing and what we had proposed to the government is that, yes, we are going to, because demand is high at the moment compared to supply, maybe we have to allow the price to play, the market price to play its role, and eventually demand and supply will find the right price will find in the market, whereby demand and supply equilibrium will come. And this is the areas where we're having this constant engagement with government to ensure that that kind of stability remains. I must say, since there has been an improvement in supply, and that is also partly caused by the global commodity prices slightly coming off from their peaks. So there has been an improvement from what we saw a month back, but we are still not out of the woods, and we are constantly kind of engaging with government to find ways whereby we can actually alleviate this dollar shortage which is there in the market. But it is there is a shortage still.
All right, fair enough. Let's talk about another thing even as we bring the show to a close. The issue about raw materials and the dependency on international supplies for raw materials like palm and, of course, wheat, which has affected, again, manufacturing in the country. How do we alleviate or how do we minimize on dependence on other countries to be able to get raw materials so that manufacturers can actually find some of these raw materials locally and take advantage of them to produce more locally?
Brian, a very good question. And I think this is something, after coming out of the pandemic, how we have seen the global supply chains kind of disrupting, has brought this conversation around what we call onshoring our supply chains. And then the next event which came was the Ukraine-Russian crisis. We brought a bigger challenge around food supplies. This is why I think it's very important for economies like Kenya to develop a more robust agricultural policy. We need to be food secure. We need to ensure, as not only as Kenya, but as a region, as the East African bloc, that we are able to kind of produce food and be able to sustain our food security within this region. This is why the conversation has already started at an Africa level, where there's now investment being put by the African Development Bank towards how we can grow more of some of our basic staples, like wheat. Wheat is the particular commodity, and I think we need to really find ways how we can actually have less dependency on markets outside for at least our basic staples. And this is a conversation that we are continuously going to have with the new government, which will come in play, which is going to come in, that how we can improve our agricultural policies to be able to become more productive in our basic staples, and also see how we can enhance the trade amongst within our East African partners, because there are other East African partners which are growing more of the food stuff, and we can also trade, and likewise we can also trade in the more sophisticated manufacturing products that we are making in Kenya, so that it becomes an equilibrium where there's a trade happening amongst all of us as East African partners, and further into the Africa continental free trade as well. But a very relevant conversation, and this is something which is going to become very urgent for us to start kind of discussing on our food security.
In under 30 seconds, sir, before I let you go, when people think about manufacturing, they look at this big industry set up in industrial area that employs 1,000 people, but there are young people like me who would want to get into this industry. What are some new opportunities that you would advise them to get into in under 30 seconds, sir? Go ahead.
I think any industry, before they become big, are always as an SME. So I think the opportunity really for SMEs, and they represent the larger component. In terms of opportunities, I think with technology now becoming so important and the youth adopting technology, there is a lot that our youth can do towards fast-tracking using technology to make products and look at what are the current market needs. Whether it's in the food, whether it's in, and using the local primary produce, whether it's agricultural produce, whether it's leather, whether it's some of our other minerals, and how they can add value to that. And you start small, and there's nothing which stops somebody starting small and growing. And this is how any industry, even large industry, would have gone through its journey. So I encourage more of the SMEs to take the bold step and take the risk, and please go into manufacturing.
Fair enough. Many thanks, Mr. Rajan Shah, the first of many, I suppose. I'll be harassing you just like I told you I will be. Thank you so much.
No, most welcome. Most welcome. Thank you, Brian.
All for the benefit of the manufacturers and, of course, for the growth of Kenya. Mr. Rajan Shah, for the very first time as chair of Kenya Association of Manufacturers, right here on KTN News. Many thanks for your invaluable company. Purity Museo is up next with News Center. I'm Brian Jojo Tieno. Let's do this tomorrow. Same place, same time. God bless.